called Hackard. So we're gonna be showing lots of stuff that perhaps I should start with the second one. Like the quote for this session is like embrace limitations. So because limitations are driving creativity. So the sessions will be going for 3 hours, and we have a couple of excellent talks. So we will be starting, so you will see this one in a couple of minutes, about Visualization Matters. So gonna show you a couple of projects on the cross sections of art and science, and as well visualization and interactivity, and as well gonna close everything with like a short introduction to Vulkan, or like basically like a couple of things about Vulkan. The second one will be Franco. Will be talking about hacks and techniques for interactions in virtual and mixed reality. So Franco is sitting here. Then we're gonna be having painting with the code. So Paul, who is sitting here, and making hack art inspired by code and optimization by Łukasz, who is sitting in here as well in the front. So you have like the timeline, and we try to stick to the time. So if you want to go to a different sessions, come back also, so you can see what time we'll be starting and so on. I will start with the Visualization Matters. So for small scale to massive scale, so I'm gonna show you a couple of different things. And we start with interactive mirroring, so a bit of art and science project that we developed together with June, who is sitting next to me. Then we're gonna be showing you how to use virtual reality to save Jaguar in jungle. So a bit of like a good cause for using the technology for making this world a better place. And as well, small introductions to Vulkan for graphics and compute. So we're gonna start with Indeed, which is the name of the art installations then June and myself prepared like it was like a year ago, perhaps. So we're gonna show you a couple of details about that. So let's go and talk about space.
Well, actually that represents me, or that represent a being or thing that I see, because actually one day I sat in a cafe and browsed people around me, and they were talking each other, but I kind of felt that they were talking and I wasn't really sure that they are actually sharing a space. Although we are all sitting in a cafe, I kind of felt that they are in their own space. So I was sitting there and listening. Well, my friends was talking to me probably, but I didn't really listen what she was talking. And I sort of tried to draw a circle around people. And I thought that maybe that circle represents more of that person rather than that person. So the project actually started from that idea. And I drew that sort of like a not even defined circle, very organic form of circle, because well, you know, that organic form actually represents the influence of other people around you and also your thought. So it can be changed every second, every moment. So that was my interpretation, seeing things and being. And to make this project, I came up with balloon and bubble. I think that's a very general approach, because I sort of wanted to represent, I just draw a circle line, and I wanted to represent that into 3D form. And then I thought of a balloon and bubble. And I really like the reflective material of balloon, but organic form of bubble. And both of them actually driven by our breath input. So I actually came up with my own form, like a floating sack, and interacting with breathing input. So I sort of plan to make the organic form driven by your a breath input, so interactive mirroring.
Yeah, so I came into play as well, we had a bit of discussions how this can be actually done in an interactive way. So we started with some technical concepts, and basically, we built up physics model for simulating balloons. So it's kind of, I would say, hardcore physics that drives, the movement of the balloon and allows you to blow in the balloon and as well interact with the balloon. So we show you like as well like interactive demo, how it works. Basically what we did at the end, when we ended up, because like June wanted to have like different objects of any type, so wanted to have, you know, like perhaps like the balloon, but as well, you know, like cubes and other things. So we came up with the conclusions that we need to develop like the generic loader that loads any kind of objects and converts these objects to a Spring model. I would talk to you about this in a second. And interactivity with the whole model is using different sensors. So it's Arduino. So how many of you played with Arduino before? So, okay, excellent. So we're gonna be having as well during the sessions couple of different intros to Arduino. So Łukasz will be talking in particular about some of the hacks using Arduino. So you can hopefully learn something from him as well. So use Arduino for doing like the blowing as a blowing sensor, communicating using microphone and Bluetooth device with as well leap motion. So leap motion was used basically tracking your hands movements, and we translated the hand movements to the strength and directions of the gravity, so you can apply any kind of gravity to the simulation, because the balloon floats in space, so it's like zero gravity at the initial stage. And we have as well camera, so we're talking about interactive mirroring that June will explain in a second, and Kinect to track the body motions and interactions using your full body. And then simulation is driving using 3 different forces. So gravity is one force, then spring, which is keeping springs together, so it's like Hooke's model of springs, and as well pressure, internal pressure, which is allowing you to blow the balloon and make it, you know, like really like a real balloon. So I said about leap motions for the interactions. We use as well mouse and Kinect, and if you have like a touch panel, you can as well use your fingers to move in the simulation. And for the visualization, we're using like imaging coming from the camera inputs. So this one is used to build up environmental mapping and use some very simple lighting models to make it more attractive, so it looks very artistic. So we sell this one, this concept of these art installations as a connections of art and science, because it's really like coming from scientific, you know, driver, like doing all the simulations, but as well, we believe it's very beautiful. So when we're showing this presentation to scientists, they ask, you know, oh, that's very cool. Can you do actually lava simulation with that? When we show it to artists, they said, oh, it's so beautiful. So you're gonna see how it works in a second as well. So physics, so basically like every object in 3D graphics, especially if you do stuff with OpenGL, is using triangles as the major primitives to build up the more complex objects. So what I built was like loaded any kind of object. So in this case, it's like the very simple testing sphere, and apply like vector normals to every single point. And then those vector normals were used to define the pressure force coming from inside the balloon. So it's like using actually gas equation, so real gas equations if you studied physics in the high school or the university, so you know the equation. So they basically, it balances up the pressures of outside and as well inside of the balloon. And we have gravity, of course, and we have as well like the connectors. So these edges are actually acting as a springs. So each point is actually interconnected with each other and balancing up those forces. It took actually a couple of good days to make the proper balance, changing different parameters, because like it was sometimes very unstable. So then as you can see, we could load different objects, so use DAC, and of course, you know, like because we as well like computer graphics community is very attached to the Stanford Bunny, so Stanford Bunny as the object that you're gonna see in our demonstration. Then we have like Arduino, so this is like some photographs coming from our experimentations. So to the Arduino, we attached a Bluetooth shield, which was able to communicate with your laptops wirelessly and sending information from the mic. And we use mic because it actually detected the breath very nicely. So June and I, we experimented with a couple of different sensors, and mic was representing the breath really, really nicely. I think you have like very, very great peak when you blow to the mic. And then Kinect. So Kinect, we use Microsoft Kinect 2. So it's excellent because it's very high resolution and allows you to track up to 6 people. And in our installations, I think you can say a few words about why we have 6 people later on as well.
Yeah, well, actually, I can say that now because it is like a as I said you previously. Well, I just put the circle around each person. So I sort of wanted to represent the influence by the very close circle, around you, because, well, I think that maybe not, but I feel that probably day by day I am changing based on my desire, but also based on somebody's influence. I might be listening other people a bit more than other people, but that's why I wanted to have about a 5 to 6 other influence. So this one, the primary medium is blower. I created a blower and put that sensor inside of the blower. So you interact with that bubble by breathing. That's a primary method. But at the same time, about 5 people can stand around you and interact to the shape. And that represents me, I feel.
Okay. So I mentioned about bunny, so I won't repeat. So basically the physical model work that you can actually stretch the bunny. So this is showing some of the simulations using the meshes, and also vector normals are displayed as a hairy bunny. So you can grab the point and actually stretch the whole bunny, and it responds in very natural physical way. So I'll show you that one in a second as well. And then we have different interaction modes. So this is showing a couple of different states. So when you start the simulation, so it was you're coming to the art installation and nothing is displayed, and then Kinect detects you are in the front of it and the bunny appears. If another person comes, it can interact as well, influence your circle as June described. And then we have different modes. So you can hold and drag. The bunny usually is getting deflated, so it's getting really, really like balloon with no air inside. And you can use Kinect's Arduino sensor and mic to blow the air in and then allow it to float in space, and as well hold and drag and blow the air in. So we'll show you this one in a second, I guess. Maybe we just show now the how it works. So usually we have, so this is a demo, which is not, we don't have any sensors with us, unfortunately, or just run out.
You can actually drag.
So you can actually drag the bunny, and it responds properly to the forcing. And then I can simulate the blowing. So we use Arduino for blowing, as I mentioned, and I can simulate the blow. So you can see the model is getting full of air, and it floats in space. So then if you have leap motion attached to it, you can actually define the gravitational field. So depending on how strongly you move your hand, you define the strength of the gravity and directions of the gravity. And then if you have 2 people coming to the art installations, you can actually drag the bunny and do the interactions as June is doing by using just hand. So you should perhaps talk about the reflection, what it means. It's perhaps on our next slide anyway. So this was development of the blower, so a bit of, stuff working at home and trying to make it happen. And then the meaning of the mirroring, so.
Oh, I actually covered.
You already covered, okay, yes. So interactions, and there's some pictures showing 2 people interacting and basically debugging of the body skeletons and how they interact with the whole art installation. So we can have up to 6 people interacting with the object. Yep. And then you want to talk about the closing?
Yeah, so that's why, well, so this is what the before and after. So it is started with that a circle line, and then this is what I'm mirroring. I sort of wanted to have an interactive mirroring, and it's not really conventional mirroring. As you can see, all the images are squashed and mingled, so you can't really see yourself. So that's why I titled this is Indeed. It's really a motion blood moment. So it's not it doesn't really show you the sharp moment, but to me, this could be really the moment of mirroring.
Okay. So do we have any quick question? Just one question maybe? If not, we can move to another one, because I have very limited time actually to show everything. So we wanted to show you how you can use virtual reality for conservation. So it's like our latest project, so we're trying to use, basically like you will see in a second. So virtual reality is everywhere, so this is photo from one of the latest conferences, and I believe perhaps in a couple of years at FMX we're gonna be meeting like this, hopefully not, right? It's nothing better than face-to-face interaction, but it's getting dangerous that we're gonna be attending conferences like in this way. We're saying, we're coming from the, we know all these movies that are perhaps like some snapshots you recognize, like Minority Report, Matrix, or Avatar. And as you can see, the future is now, right? So lots of companies and lots of, scientists, researchers, artists are using very similar user interfaces to communicate the message to general audience or to other scientists or so on. So we team at QUT in Australia, we built up a project we called the Jaguar VR. And the project is actually connecting a couple of different things together. So it's like not only media, but as well mathematics, heavy statistical modeling, machine learning, and visualization. And the reason for that was we want to save jaguars in the jungle. And what we wanted to do was to bring the Amazon to the scientists and general audiences. So basically, what we did, we sent a couple of it was like 10 people to Amazon in Peru for 4 weeks, where they were traveling across the Peruvian jungle, having no access to the external world whatsoever. However, they had like camera like this, you can show. And basically what they were doing, they were capturing images from different forest sites. And by doing that, we could use those 360 degrees videos and photographs to do expert elicitation, as well interview like local people about the possibility and probability of having jaguars in a specific spot. Based on that, we can build very big statistical model to predict where the jaguars are and how they are moving. And then we can present it to the government to say, you have to save this land because the jaguars will be gone, and don't allow to sell the land to the mining companies that are trying to actually to expand on the Amazon region. And basically, virtual reality in this project was the major element. So if you're brave enough to come to us later after the session or any time perhaps, we have like a demo also running on Gear VR, so you can test it yourself. So.
Yeah, actually, I was very lucky enough to be called scientist in this project because I'm sort of like for my research and practice interest in art installation, and for this one actually VR. So I was lucky, and I was like one of the 4 members from my university to go to Amazon to take 360 films and VR, like a stereo images. And yeah, this one is actually, as Thomas said, bringing Amazon to scientists, not vice versa, because I actually had a bit of doubt, but still, I thought that why don't we go to field trip rather than bringing the footages? But to go to Amazon, we departed from Brisbane and Sydney, and we had to go to Santiago and then Lima and Pucallpa, like a little town that close to the Amazon. And then Pucallpa to Amazon, 12 hours boat trip. Like a total, it took about 40 hours. So it's really, really long trip. Of course, it's like a unique experience, but it's totally a tiring trip. So we went to Amazon, and yep. So this is like one of the 360 images that I took in Aguajali area. And well, we showed this one 360, but actually this is not the footage, not the gear that I took.
We have it one on the other slide, so
yeah,
we can show.
You just jump on that one? So these are the gears we took, and you can see that at the back, yeah, that's what we took because that's a waterproof rig. Well, the Amazon is like really, really humid. Like a humidity is always like about 95%, or every day like 100% is very usual. So even with the waterproof rig, like if you shoot in the middle of the forest for longer than an hour, you will see like a fogs coming into even the waterproof rig. So we took that one, and also this one is the stereo.
You have it here as well, right?
Yeah.
So you can show.
So that's what I took, and that's also like a waterproof rig. But yeah, about after an hour later, it started having fog, and everything has to be sort of like covered by the waterproof rig, although it didn't rain because of the humidity.
Yeah, so we had as well, so we prepared like the whole system, so Ricoh Theta that perhaps you guys know because it's very beautiful camera for consumer market. With the GoPros, it's very, very, very hard actually with the stitching, especially when you do movies and you travel on the boat, tiny micro movements of the rig, makes, stitching more complex because you need actually to stitch almost frame by frame. But Ricoh Theta gives you, you push the button or you can use your phone to do photographs. However, it does not give you like the very high resolution image at the end.
Yeah, so like a 360 and VR gears are, I think, like a very new to just like a normal general audiences, but well, it was really new to us too. So we sort of experiment in Brisbane or like a Sydney based, but still it didn't really work. So
yes.
And so those gears like I used for capturing the other image.
Yeah, so we had as well like infrared camera, which was used to, it's like a trap camera, so we wanted to leave it in the forest, and when there was like micro movements around the forest, the camera was taking movies or photographs that we can use later. As well, we had like, because we wanted to have like spatial sound as well, we use like Zoom H2N handy recorder, it's recording stuff in 360. And it's very beautiful because you can attach it to 360 camera and you get fully spatial sound. So then when you import your projects to like engines like Unity, for instance, you have almost everything for free for you over there. It's not very hard. So then we use as well, of course, Samsung Gear VR. So we have like this one. So we have demos as well, so we can show you. And it's very nice because it's portable, so we could take it to the forest. And as well, we have like Google Cardboard, but we had like the versions. We had like versions which was plastic because we couldn't trust like the cardboard. Really, cardboard can be very easily destroyed by the humidity. And of course, GPS system that was geolocating location of the team. So it was very hard actually from our end because I didn't have any contact with the team. I was in Brisbane then. June was in the jungle for 3 weeks. No contact with whole team whatsoever. Very, very hard. So we didn't know whether they survived, whether they were eaten by crocodile or something. But they came back safely, so it's all good. So we could build some science based on that now.
And GPS was actually very important for us, not like letting them like we are survive or not, but like a GPS, we had to get a geolocation that where the jaguar can survive, and sort of like a geolocation that where jaguar cannot live for our research purpose.
Yeah, so this one shows Juno, which is mounting. Juno is mounting the rig. So we have like a specialized tripods developed as well for the project. So we don't have photo of this, unfortunately, here. But if you're interested, we can send you later. And on the right-hand side, you can see Kerry Mengerson. She is using like one of these plastic Google Cardboards. Very, very simple, but they work pretty well with high humidity. So very easy, very small, and very easy to transport everywhere as well if you.
Yeah, and we took just a couple of them because they can be just it's a cheap, so it can be just destroyed. So.
Yeah, and we thought it will be actually very interesting for community here to hear about how you do actual stitching and what kind of software you use for doing all this magic with like production and post-production. So John wanted.
Well, yeah, this.
I have, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so this is the stitching process, and the rig that we showed you is it's made by Color, the French company, and also I used the software called AutoPanel Giga and AutoPanel Video Pro, and which is also made by Color, the company. And I think that at the moment the GoPro and the Color has collaborated to make their rig and software package. It's coming out in August, but yeah, this is what the program that I used. And first, well, it's actually it includes quite a bit of a tedious job. well, each camera takes each footages, but like for stitching, you have to go back to the each camera and get each of the footage and bring the 6 footages and move to another folder and moving and also drag that folder with the 6 images to this program. So it sort of includes a bit of a tedious process. And yep, and I just put the 6 images in the software and it shows like that. And well, when I experiment in Brisbane and took the 360 movies or 360 images in the middle of city and tried to stitch, and it had the auto stitch function worked very well because it had the reference points to stitch, so auto stitch was very well. But in the middle of jungle, I had 2 challenges because in the jungle, Amazon has one, as you can see, one camera is facing up and the other camera is facing down. So the brightness is a huge issue, exposure, facing to sun is far too bright and facing to ground of the forest is really dark. So when I bring the footages into the software doesn't really recognize as these 2 images are the part of the same image. So I really had to do lots of the manual job. So for the manual job, I use the a control point panel. So I just bring into the image into the software, and as you can see, there are many green tags, which means good. But well, it often just came up with lots of red tags. And then I really manually stitching, moving the images a little bit, or also putting the points and putting the points from image A and putting the points to the image B. So it included a lot of a manual job, and because it doesn't, as you can see, there are just so many leaves and so many greens, and they are not a very a distinctive reference point. So it included a lot of a manual stitching. Yep, and before processing, I used Lightroom because if I just bring the images into the Lightroom to make the exposure rate possibly similar. And then I did many post-production jobs in Photoshop and also in After Effects. And I know people use Premiere, but I didn't really use. I may just experiment Premiere later.
Yeah, and I think Premiere is coming with plugins for 360, so it will be much easier to operate on 360 degrees movies. So which is coming actually very fast and very quick to the market these days. You want to say a few words about the challenges?
Yeah, actually that was the very challenging in the middle of Amazon because, well, in Amazon, we just stayed in with the indigenous people, and that is the generator. I don't think you guys haven't seen this before, and that's the generator which shared by 150 households, and they have electricity probably about 2 days a week, about 3 to 4 hours each day. And when I had to charge all these gears, about 2 to 3 laptops and about 20 GoPros, and one day I just tried to charge everything, and of course but actually each day they have a kids movie night, and also only twice a week they can have a a street light on and everything. But as soon as I tried to charge everything, just about half an hour, I used all their petrol, and I made I ruined their kids' movie night, and I made the village whole dark.
You made lots of enemies, huh?
Yes, so I had to hide. Yeah, but with all those challenges, and also I just wrote the fighting with army of Mozi was challenge, but with all those challenges, it was priceless experience, and beautiful is not really the enough word to describe Amazon, beauty of Amazon, and the people were so nice. Yeah, so that's the part of like our research, everything.
So this is like a research team which is doing a bit of like interviews with the people and building up these statistical models actually live.
And it's just like, well, I took this picture with my iPhone, so I don't really think that you need like the good camera in Amazon. You can just take a picture and it becomes an art. It's so beautiful. And yeah, well, I don't know. Like, I actually thought that I was a VR enthusiast, but I didn't really see like how to do the storytellings, and like I was not really sure like what VR can do. But after being to Amazon, I actually could see, I actually like witnessed that really the true power of VR in conservation project. Well, this, like I think even like this conference, like people talking about like how to manage the storytelling in VR. But I think for this kind of documentary job, like VR works very well because we don't really have to bring the audience into like one storyline. This is like a spatial narrative. Like we really have to show the audience like every like a 360 degrees to make them to feel and experience the wildlife. So I think that makes like an audience like to feel more about the wildlife conservation. So I actually really enjoyed.
Okay, so we are running a bit out of time, so I'll show you very quickly. If you go to this website, vis.stats.technology, there are like more details about the project. And as well, what we have, we produce like this 360 degrees videos you can experience if you open it up. So this is like the website. It's very, very simple. And if you play the video, hopefully it will stream. You should be able to do 360 degrees rotations as well. So you can use and drag your mouse and look around the whole field of view. So this video shows you, like the experience of the people who were traveling, all the scientists in the jungle, so all our footages, and mainly June's work actually, like capturing the stuff and then doing the movie afterwards. And you can actually experience stuff. So if you have Android device and you play this video on the YouTube on Android device, you can and use Google Cardboard, you can actually experience this as it is. So look around and so on. We have as well the same video running on our Gear VR. So come along later, we can show you demo. So it's like kind of like interactive video showing different elements, different parts of forest. I just stop playing in a second because of the time. But I saw love some of the footages, so you can see the team traveling on the boat, and then we have some basic informations being displayed and mixed with the 360 movie. So I encourage you to look at the website if you are interested. And then based on that, we have like different footages we use for doing expert elicitation, as I mentioned before, and built up as well like virtual reality, like scenes displaying different sites. So if you go to our website and you have like Android device, you can actually download the binary and install it on your phone as well and experience different sites. So you have like informations about the basic sites, but as well you can experience those like some deep forest as well, like lakes, like Turtle Beach and so on. So strongly encourage you to see that, and of course demo if you are interested later on. And at the end, to communicate the story, we built up the ebook. So the book is telling you the story. You can get it as well. It's open sourced, so it's sitting on the website and available for everybody who is interested. You can download the beautiful PDF and read the story of the scientist. So for more information, go to the website and you can find out more. So I hope it was interesting. Any question to this? Okay, I have no questions. That's good. We can move to the next one then. I have only, I guess, 10 minutes. So Vulkan, I can see some people have Vulkan t-shirts, which is good. So who is interested in Vulkan? A lot of people. Excellent. Excellent. So it won't be very deep dive. It will be just overall overview really of the technology and where you can find the information about the Vulkan. But if you come to talk to me, I can point you to a couple of websites and a couple of different places where you can find more information. So basically, the Khronos Group, I should say a few words about the Khronos Group. So I talk because of my involvement with the Khronos Group. So Khronos Group is industry consortium which is creating open standards and open standard APIs basically to enable software to access hardware accelerations for graphics, parallel compute, and vision as well. And there are a couple of other things in discussions, maybe something with like more hardcore like computer vision, but as well maybe machine learning too. So, and basically Vulkan 1.0 was launched on 16th of February. So I believe if some of you were attending like GDC, there was some presentations and deep dives, so those very detailed presentations run by Khronos Group and Khronos members. And talking about ecosystem, we have as well WebGL 2.0, which is getting very close to the release, and GLTF, which is building up the momentum at the moment of building and transmitting 3D assets for the web, especially for AR and VR experiences. So it's like, compressing some of the meshes and geometrical configurations and making like very quick uploads and streaming. And I wanted to say, before I go into Vulkan, a few words about the chapters. So Khronos is expanding the chapters program, and especially we're looking for volunteers in Europe. So if you are interested in Vulkan, OpenGL, WebGL, OpenCL, and bridging the APIs to the local community, you can talk to me, and we can talk how you can create a chapter in your local area, and you will have some benefits of being chapter leader, having access to some of the APIs, perhaps upfront after signing NDAs and so on. So at 1 p.m. we're gonna be having like a short meeting in the Logo Cafe downstairs. So there's like this small restaurant. So please come along. There will be like Angela Chang, who is in business development charge of Khronos chapters. And if you are interested, like all the means, please raise your hand and create and make it larger. So trying to build up the community around the APIs. So there was like lots of discussions about OpenGL, for instance, in the industry. So OpenGL is, as per today, is very old API. So it has more than 25 years. So discussions were how, what we should do with the OpenGL and what needed to be done. So Khronos Group decided actually to develop something new based on something which was already kind of on the market. So I mentioned it in the second, and make very lightweight, not very easy, but lightweight way of programming graphics, having full control on everything for as well like big machines, but as well like virtual reality, mobile devices, like for cars, and especially for upcoming AR and VR improvements. So we call it, it's a next generation GPU API. So it covers many different platforms. So as you can see, DirectX is targeting mainly Windows systems, as you know. And we have as well Metal, which is very similar kind of to Vulkan, but it's sitting on the Apple side. And Vulkan is covering almost all the major platforms. So not only Windows and Linux, but as well like, for instance, Samsung released SDK for Samsung devices. So if you get Samsung S7, you can actually get the Vulkan running on the mobile device and have like this performance improvements. And as I said, like Vulkan is not very trivial. So if you were doing OpenGL perhaps was not the simplest, but once you get there, it's all right. It's quite easy to understand once you are having like a bit of experience. If you're coming from OpenGL experience, sitting to Vulkan, you said, oh my gosh, what's gonna, it's like completely, different world. So very basic hello world example, it's around 600 lines of code, but it gives you some additional, capabilities, you couldn't do using OpenGL. So this plot showing, what kind of potential performance gains you can get when you're using Vulkan. So almost very similar to the DirectX 12, but amount of work you have to put is actually really amazing. You have actually to redefine the ways you do your applications, almost from the beginning. So this is showing like how it was created and what kind of companies were involved in developing the Vulkan API. So there's like a working group which is meeting every couple of months and talking about the API calls, talking about directions and evolutions and so on. So the one is actually happening now in Frankfurt at the moment. Today is the last day. And the Vulkan, as I said, was released on 16th of February. So you can see lots of companies are being involved, game development companies, as well the major players like NVIDIA, Intel, AMD are there as well. So Vulkan gives you explicit GPU control. So compared to OpenGL, on OpenGL you have like the high-level driver abstraction that was taking care of all the memory management and data flows. In Vulkan, all of the stuff was transferred to you as a main developer and to your applications that you're doing. So all the memory allocations, thread management, multi-threaded generation of command buffers, and so on, it belongs to you. So you have to control everything by yourself. So currently, when you're developing Vulkan applications, you have to write huge amount of code. But we believe because of the community support, or we may be having lots of libraries coming up from the exactly community, building up, like easier way, easier API. So the same like with like GLF, W, or GLAD for OpenGL, making it more simple so you don't need to worry about, like windowing and, like the buffers. You just use the higher level functions. So this is all coming up. Then we have the power of three-layer ecosystem. So this is showing you can use Vulkan currently as directly and explicitly. But as well, there will be lots of utilities and libraries and layers coming along. So it's like layered structure. So I can say a few words about this in a second. But as well, if you are like a game developer and using like the major game development engines, the companies are working actually on using Vulkan for improving the performance of the graphics. So you don't necessarily need to see the Vulkan as per se, API calls and so on. You just basically use it, so it's given for free to you for use. There's like multi-threading efficiency. So this is the major difference with OpenGL. You have like multiple threads can construct command buffers in parallel, so which is giving additional like the performance gains when you're building your applications. I won't be going into details because it's too much to say. I have only like 3 or 4 more minutes to the end of my presentation. But I can point you to the information where to find the and books and manuals and so on. So this is like the plot that Khronos is showing where you should use Vulkan. So again, if you're already like using your GPUs to the maximum performance, switching to Vulkan, it will kill lots of your time perhaps because learning curve is very, very high. And if you're using your GPUs to the maximum performance, it's perhaps okay to stay with what you have. However, if you want to improve and go along with the technology, just be free to use and learn a bit more. So Vulkan is developed in the way that will cover a wide range of hardware capabilities. So it's mobile OpenGL ES up to desktop OpenGL 4.5 platforms are currently supported. And it's one unified API framework, which is running on desktop, mobile console, and embedded devices. So there will be no Vulkan ES like with OpenGL, or Vulkan desktop will be just one API for all. So just define, you just write it once and run it everywhere. So currently Khronos open up the API or like created like GitHub repository, like putting all the documentation, and the feedback is captured online. So if you are using Vulkan already, you feel free to send the feedback, and based on your feedback, the Khronos is defining the directions of the Vulkan, which directions it evolves, and so on. A very important thing which is a very big part of Vulkan is SPIR-V. I don't know whether you guys know about SPIR-V. It's like something like binary representations of the shader GLSL or compute shaders that is swallowed by the Vulkan and execute on the GPU side. So it's very, very cool because that's why like now you can build up libraries using binary representation, and you have very full flexibility that having one shader code running on all possible platforms. So this is showing like the diagram. So we have like different languages like OpenCLC, OpenCLC++, GLSL, and everything compiles to the SPIR-V representation of the shader code and runs on different platforms as well. So it can be OpenCL or Vulkan and so on. So basically, closing this presentation is if you are interested to be using Vulkan, there are resources online. So if you go to khronos.org, there are links to many different sites, websites, community sites, and as well the SDK and tools. So LunarG developed the SDK for Vulkan, and you can download the full SDK and with some very simple examples that are not very simple because it's extensive code. But at least it's good actually to see how the API is evolving today on the market. And as well on hardware vendors, you have lots of as well examples, tutorials, and so on. So the momentum is slowly building up, and I believe of time being we're gonna be having more and more. So Vulkan is very nice because it has layers, different layers that can be attached to the API. So saying that, for instance, when you're developing your applications, you may have debug layer sitting on the top of your application. And when you're doing release, you can remove it and it runs to the maximum performance. So I won't be, again, talking into details because of the time limits. But again, I mentioned about LunarG SDK. Go to the website, all the means. So there is the website here, vulkan.lunarg.com. Download the SDK, download the examples. There are tools attached to it, compiling GLSL to SPIR-V, assembler and disassembler, and as well lots of debugging tools. So you can already play with that. So Intel, NVIDIA, AMD, they have already drivers that you can use. You can download. It's all available, finally. So yeah, so those are companies that are supporting drivers for the platform. So AMD for Linux and Windows, ARM, Imagination Technologies for Linux, Intel, Linux, and Windows, and so on. And as well, as I said, there is as well version if you use Samsung S7, you can run Vulkan API to render your triangles. And ecosystem is growing, so as well there are discussions about actually some companies are building some kind of metal VK that will be running on OS X as well. So if you are using macOS, something is coming up as well that will allow you to use Vulkan on Apple. Currently, Apple, I believe, is blocking the API because of the metal, but all other major platforms are covered, which is great to see. And together with the launch of Vulkan on 16th of February, there was game release on the Steam, so you can get this one, and was using Vulkan as the major API. And 1 week after Vulkan launched, there was lots of media releases and lots of points you could actually read more about how it behaves and how it compares, for instance, with the regex. And the roadmap for Vulkan, as you can see, we have the major APIs here: OpenGL, OpenGL-ES, WebGL, OpenCL, SPIR, and Vulkan. And community is actually driving that. So Khronos are always looking for your feedback. So if you're using those APIs, and you want to cross-check some of the capabilities from the major ones, just let us know. So you can see lots of heterogeneous stuff from OpenCL will be going to Vulkan, and as well Vulkan will be bringing lots of stuff, capabilities using SPIR-V and other things will be going to OpenGL and so on. So it's all evolving, and if you use OpenGL in the past, it's not wasted effort. It's just basically incremental and kind of step-by-step when you're going to Vulkan at the end. And today, in 2016, Vulkan is high-efficient GPU graphics and compute kind of API, so adopted by many platforms. So that's current status. I won't be going into details because we have another speaker actually. I'm 5 minutes late. And remind you to come at 1 p.m. If you want to talk more about Vulkan and other APIs, we can meet face-to-face and discuss a bit more, so I can show you some other slides and direct you to different resources as well. So it will be downstairs in the coffee at 1. So I think we switch to another speaker. For the questions, we may actually, if we have some time left after all the speakers, we can have questions, or talk to me after this session as well. Thank you.